Oh yeah, you bad. Me bad, you bad. You good. You good. So awesome. Me awesome.
Hello? Hey! Do you think the buck stops here? Yeah? Nope. What? What now? In order to optimize your Linux experience, now going to 2025, there are some things you must do first, starting with things to get done immediately after installing Linux. It's been 2 weeks. Don't you think that's irrelevant? Don't you mean irrelevant? Nah. I like how irrelevant sounds better. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. Silence from the peanut gallery. I'm not too fond of peanuts, but I do like peanut butter. What's peanut butter? Enough, you two. Stop being silly. Time is precious, and we must waste it wisely. While it has been 2 weeks, it is never too late to implement these steps. It's never too late to start over again in anything. So let's do this, okay? Okay. According to DistroTube, there are 5 key things to do immediately right after any Linux install. The very first is to update the system. I did do that. There were no updates to install. Well, check again. Stop that tickle, stop! Stop, you two. She started it. I was just following directions. Ya basta, o saco la chancleta. Okay. We'll behave. Check the ThinkPad for updates. Okay, let's check the system for updates. We check for updates right after installing Linux to make sure your system is safe and running well. There might be important fixes or updates that were released after the version you installed. Updating makes sure everything is current and working the best it can. All right, don't come after me, but from what I see down here, I have 120 updates available. What? Ooh, what's this? Some system reports require your attention. You see, I turned off Wi-Fi. Okay, I guilty. So what do I do? Do I do this? Do you want to switch to a local mirror, usually faster than packages? Next updates.
You know what we're gonna do? Bypass, look at this. Alright, they're like 1 gigabyte. We're gonna just update, right? What's the local mirror? Let's see, expert, daemon, delete archive, la 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 la. These are all the updates. So I think I should be checking more often for updates. Disk encryption support, gnome. Oh, there's gnome. Manage online icons for the gnome desktop.
Look at all that. Look at all that beauty stuff. Okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna, what's a local mirror? Well, we're gonna install here in the update manager, install updates, which is about 1 gigabyte. The following packages will be installed.
Libra, Linux headers, tools, Python, pip, Python 3.
Okay. Just gotta read those errors. Download is performed unsandboxed as root. Permission denied. Okay, well, we couldn't get there. I'm filming this. Newbie here, Linux newbie. Well, we're filming this so I could look it up later. Permission denied. All right. Reboot required. You have installed updates. Your system is up to date. Yay! Please reboot your system as soon as possible. Let's reboot. I already am feeling a bit more refreshed and sprightly. swiftly now. Okay, the next thing is to install proprietary drivers and multimedia codecs, all that yaya stuff. This is something that was skipped during the install to save time. Now we must install them. Please clarify. With every new install, your computer might need special drivers for things like your graphics card or your Wi-Fi. To do this, you need to find your software and updates tool and go and see additional drivers. You need to open the software and updates tool. You need to open the software and updates tool and go to the additional drivers section. This will check if your computer needs those special drivers. If it finds any, just click on the button to install them. This process is simple in versions like Linux Mint and Ubuntu. Okay. Install multimedia codecs. Let's do that because that's the next thing we have to do is install multimedia codecs. Additional changes are required. Okay, continue. Linux Mint time shift. What's this? Ooh. The third thing. Third thing. The third thing to do after setting up Linux is to turn off programs that come on automatically. Programs that start automatically but you don't need, like the welcome screen. Other apps that run the moment you turn on your computer. Here's the part about disabling like auto run programs, because I'm still a noob. I'm a newbie at Linux. This is one of the things that pop up when you start up Linux, and this is the welcome to Linux Mint, and they have like these first steps, and which actually I appreciate because it helps me go through it and learn about it better. So I would not disable it, but if you wanted to disable this, you can go down here where it says show this dialog. That's set up, and you could uncheck it if you want, like that. But I'm going to keep it on because I want to see it, because I want to go through this stuff. I want to learn about it. Like I did set up the firewall. Let's see if it's been enabled. Let's see. I want to make sure it's been enabled. Let's confirm that. Yep, it's been enabled. So the status has been enabled. Incoming deny, outgoing allow. And yeah, perfect. So yeah, we're going to keep that on. The fourth thing you want to do right after installing Linux is to install new package managers. Most Linux systems come in with their own built-in tool for downloading and installing programs, their own native package manager. Sometimes you might want to add programs to your computer that aren't already set up to work with the usual tools your system uses to install programs, but are available in other formats like snaps and flatpaks. So one of the first things to do right after installing Linux is to make sure snaps and flatpaks are set up and ready to use. This way, you can easily get all the apps that you need. And examples include Zoom, Spotify, and Discord. The fifth and final thing that you want to do after installing Linux is to add or remove software, because there will be programs that you will be head over heels in love with after installation, and there will be programs that you'll be like, meh, we can do without that. I haven't reached that point yet. On a side note, I have to look at what I have. I'm still a noob. I'm still looking through all that stuff. But you want to spend some time going over what you have, removing what you know you will not use, and installing programs that you will make best use of. Now we're going to go through some aesthetic tweaks to beautify your desktop environment, or just to make it you. Make your desktop environment for you, how you want to see it. As I am not the stylish, thrifty entrepreneur for nothing. Yes, make me look pretty. I took lots of tips from Burn Barrel Media that I am going to incorporate in my setup. He has some really useful videos on updating your Linux Mint after installation, especially on fonts. And I love fonts. I'm going to show you the tweaks I added to my system, and I will link his videos below if you want to learn more. Remember in my last video where I realized my Mac had undergone an update and I could no longer move the icons on my desktop willy-nilly to where I wanted to and leave them there like I used to? No? Then you haven't seen my last video. That's okay. There's still time to see my last video. No worries. Well, there's a fix for that here in Linux. To do this, right-click on the desktop and click on Customize. Then Auto Arrange. If Auto Arrange is on, turn it off so that you can move your desktop icons around wherever to your delight on your desktop. However, if you are okay having all the icons stuck on one part of your screen to never move to any other place forevermore, then you don't have to worry about Auto Arrange. You can leave that feature on until the day you can't take it anymore and you want to be wild and free. And that Auto Arrange switch will be waiting for you to turn it off. Moving along, is having your desktop nearly bare naked starting to irk you? Perhaps you want to display more icons to zhuzh it up a little bit, like the trash can, or computer, or home. To bring more of those icons out of hiding, select the computer, home, and trash sliders until they turn blue. And voila! Now you have more icons on your desktop. Are you particular with how you view your files? This is a judgment-free zone. I'm not judging. We all have our methods of dealing with documents and stuff, especially how we view them and locate them. Burn Barrel Media shared some file management tweaks that I certainly will be incorporating. I like to see my files as a list, see everything there. Sometimes I like to see icons, but then you have to scroll down a lot to find, especially if you have a lot of files, which I tend to do. So I prefer to see my files in a list. But if you always want to see your files in a list, Burn Barrel Media shows you how to do this. In Home, go up to Edit and then Preferences. And right under View New File Folders Using, click on the drop-down menu and click on List. Then you want to go over to Behavior on the left side of the box and click on it. Under Behavior, click on the file's name twice to rename it. This is to save you time when you are renaming files in a jiffy. Another feature that you want to make sure is enabled, turned on, is to make sure that files just open when you click on them, instead of another pop-up box opening asking if it's okay to open said file. We have no time for that. So to make sure that when you click on the file, it opens right away, go to Executable Text Files and select View Executable Text Files when they are opened. Problem solved. Now go and click on List Columns. Go to List Columns, and this only works if you are viewing all your files as a list. You have the ability to add more columns, like Date Created. I think Date Created is an important column to have to know when you created said file. Makes it easier to locate. Now, if you want your file folders to open in a certain part of the screen, like the center, you can actually set that setting for yourself. You go to the Start menu, type in Window, click on Windows, and of the three tabs that you see on top, click on Behavior. Under Moving and Resizing Windows, go to Location of Newly Opened Windows, click on the drop-down menu and click on Center. Once you activate this, every file folder you open will open in the center of your screen. If you don't want your files to open in the center of the screen, when you click on them, you can choose other locations. That's my water bottle. Now, time and date settings. You can choose how you view your time and date. You can add the day. You can put in 24 hours, no 24 hours. You can choose whether the day of the week starts on Sunday or on Monday. And here is the place where you do all that. It's in the lower right-hand corner. You click on the time and date settings, and in the box that opens up, that pops open, you can make those changes. You can disable the 24-hour clock, and here's where you can tweak it to show the day to your fancy. Screensaver and power settings. This is where you tell how long should it take before the computer goes to sleep. So you go to the Start button and type in Screensaver, and under Display, before starting the screensaver, choose the amount of time you want to pass before the computer goes to sleep. And if you spend long amounts of time in front of your computer, you can choose never. But I'm always wanting to go get a snack, go to the bathroom because I drink lots of coffee and some water. So I'm gonna probably choose 5 minutes, but that's just me. Under power settings, or for power settings, go back and click on Start, type in Power, and then go to Power Management. Under Power Options, for turn off the screen when inactive, choose the amount of time that makes most sense to you. I stated earlier that I love fonts. In fact, when I'm writing, I have my own particular settings when I'm writing and typing a document, including the background color. I'll talk about that in a later video. But what Burn Barrel Media taught in a separate video is how to download extra fonts to add to your office applications. And one is doing them manually, going to a site called fontspace.com and choosing what fonts suits your fancy, what fonts that you like. There are like, I think, over 130,000 fonts to choose from. What he did point out, and I want to point out to you, is that there are fonts for personal use and fonts for commercial use. Now, I type for personal use for writing, but he also does outside work where he needs to use commercial fonts. And he shows you how to do that on fontspace.com, where there's like, say you look for a particular font, like he looked for a script font, and all these script fonts appeared. And on the top, you can click on, there's a selection where it says commercial. And you click on that and all the commercial fonts appear. And these are fonts that you can use in advertisements or flyers or invitations. And they are 100% free to use. I would suggest to just look for commercial fonts if sometime in the near future you get contracted to do something, to create some Word document or something for someone that you're going to get compensated for, just to play it safe. But that's just me. You do what you want. No judgment here. In a nutshell, to download a font, there are two ways to do it. You can do it manually. You go to fontspace.com, you find a font that you love, you download it, and then you go to your downloads folder and you extract it. Then you need to open up another window. You go to File System, then you go to USR, then Share, and there's a folder called Fonts. And I like what he pointed out is that instead of just moving the new fonts that you downloaded into that folder, it's better to create a separate folder of the fonts that you downloaded. So in order to do that, you need elevated privileges. So you're going to right click in that folder and select Open as Root. And then you're going to see a red bar across that box, which will indicate that you have been granted elevated privileges. Now you can right click in that folder and select New Folder and label your folder My Favorite Fonts, Personal Fonts, Potato Fonts, whatever you want. But you know that folder are the fonts that you have downloaded, so you can know which fonts are the ones that you prefer and then which fonts came with your install. And once you enter LibreOffice and you click on the different fonts, you will see your new fonts appear in the drop-down of fonts. There is another way to install fonts, and that is to use the Font Manager. And that is something that you can download from your software manager. Font Manager is a software where you can manage fonts. It's a good program to have on your system to keep track of all the fonts that you have installed. I'm not going to talk about it here. I will leave Burn Barrel Media's video in the description bar below so that you can go and watch that video and learn more on how to do that. All right. The last thing that we want to cover here is if you're a newbie and you are just discovering the wonderful world of Linux, is how do you plan to learn Linux now into 2025? One of the videos that really called out to me is from Bread on Penguins, and she titled the video, How to Actually Learn Linux. And her shtick is, it is good to know at least the basics of Linux. She gave these examples. You learn how to drive a car, but you don't actually learn how to drive a car until you are on the road. You go to driving school, you spend time in a vehicle with the instructor, but it's never enough time. I can tell you that. When I was in school, story time, when I was in high school, they had like the driving class, and you paid, I don't even remember how much money you paid, but you literally had like, it was an hour. There was 4 students in the car with the driving instructor, and you literally had like 15 minutes to drive that car out in the neighborhood. So the first time I took my driving test, of course I did not pass. So then my mom paid for additional driving lessons where the teacher come and would pick me up and would have like an hour learning how to drive the car. And I believe he did say this to me. It's like, okay, you learn the basics of driving a car, but you're not going to learn how to drive until you are out on the road driving. That is when you learn how to drive. It's like getting your hands dirty. And then later on in my life, I did rideshare and I was a chauffeur driving in the insane streets of New York, and I really learned how to drive. So you learn how to drive driving. Okay, and I went a bit too over, but going back to Bread on Penguin's video, in that video, she talks about getting your hands dirty and just going in and playing with the system, going into the command line and learning how to do Linux. What she said, just to start to have a general understanding. One of the ways she said to actually learn Linux is to go into the terminal and pull up man pages and reading through those pages to answer any questions that you may have. And she also mentions ArchWiki, even though it's tailored to Arch Linux, but she states it's very good for all distributions of Linux. And you can read through a lot of good stuff. And there are also links inserted in there that you can click on should you want to learn more. And we are all in for learning more. I'm all for lifelong learning. She also mentions going through forums that you can read through to see if anyone else has had an issue that you are trying to troubleshoot. And she does mention read through the forums instead of just going in there and typing in, because usually somebody has had the problem that you had. And she also says there are lists of applications that are applicable to other distributions, and you're bound to find something that you can apply to others. The key word that she kept repeating is to read. She also talked about error messages are important to read. And someone had mentioned that, and I appreciate that, because when I did my Linux video, which on a side note, I want to thank you guys. I never thought that that video was going to take off. Never in my wildest dream. Honestly, I look every day, I'm like, I thank you guys, because a lot of the comments that I receive are so thoughtful and so helpful. I'm still going through them. I'm still going through your comments because there's a lot of good information in there. I like to read through them. I have to set a time throughout the day, to just sit down and read and absorb and and respond if I can. But you guys have contributed a lot of thoughtful comments. Going back to Bread on Penguin, she says to read. These days, it's hard for us to sit still and read something. But I also realized when I did the Linux video, and when I was filming it, I immediately had a freak out. But when I was going over, when I was editing the video and I was looking at the footage, I was like, oh, that's actually so clear what the screen was saying to me. And a lot of you said, read, just sit down and read through the error messages, is because it's pretty clear cut what is going on. And Bread on Penguins, I don't know if she ever mentioned her name, but that is her handle. But she did say it's good to read through the error messages, because usually it will tell you something when you sit down and she gave an example, program not installed. Also, I have to find the program to install. So it's good to read through those error messages. She said the error messages are clearer than what you have experienced in the past. And it's good to read error messages more than once. And that's another thing I want to talk about. When I make these videos, I actually do research. I watch other videos of other creators who are well established in this field that come up in my feed, and I'll watch them more than once, because repetition is key in learning stuff, learning new things. And I will actually take notes. I will have, maybe one day I'll show you my setup, but I have two screens here. I have a monitor here and my laptop here where I film, but my monitor has my notes, because when I do the research, I want to make sure I'm putting forth the right information. Of course, I'm going to put them forth in my presentation style, which is goofy and fun and funny, but that's how I like to learn. A lot of times, because I am fascinated by Linux, I am very fascinated, but sometimes the concepts could be hard to grasp the first time around. But then if you sit down and don't have distractions and you have your coffee nearby on this little warmer. I have a warmer here, guys. Do you have a warmer for your coffee? Look at that. I just bought this, I think last month, a couple of weeks ago. It's a little kitty cat. Can I show you? And it keeps my coffee warm when I'm here doing my research. That's just a sidebar note. So that you are learning stuff, or just give yourself a time, like an hour to learn this and an hour to learn that. I think what it is that we all want to do things now, or we want things to happen yesterday. And it doesn't happen that way. I give a shout out to Bread on Penguins because I like how she spoke about how she started getting into Linux. And she's talked about her experience about getting this specific type of laptop. And she really didn't know much, and it was having this problem, and she decided to install Linux on it, and it solved the problem for just a moment, and then the problem resurged, and then she had to do more research. The key here that I might be going all over the place. It's like, how do you plan on learning Linux if that is what you want to do going into 2025? From now into 2025. There's a lot of great information here on YouTube that you can make YouTube your university. I think it's Free Code Camp has I think it's a free coding camp, but I'm sure they have things on Linux. There are a lot of creators out there that will show you Linux. If you want to invest, you can go to Udemy and take courses on Linux. But I just want to learn, just to learn, because I just want to learn. That's me. And my goal is to share my experiences and how I see it in hopes of inspiring you to learn something new. It doesn't have to be Linux. It's learn something new. Learn something new out of your comfort zone. Yes. A lot of you commented in the comments that I should tackle Arch Linux. In due time, my friends, in due time. There are some sneaky purchases I need to make first. I'm looking at some ThinkPads I have saved on my watch list on eBay. And first chance I can, I will purchase them and work on them and tinker with them and maybe another distro. Anyway, but that's in the near future. So yes, there are other creators on Linux. I think the most recent one I found was, let's look it up, something Chuck. It is, here he is, Network Chuck. It's a video he created, I think it was over 5 years ago, where everyone needs to learn Linux. And he was talking specifically to people who are programmers or who do work in IT or people in that area, but I took it for everybody. Everyone needs to learn Linux. That's how I viewed it, that not only people who are in IT or in network, but everybody should learn Linux. And in some of the comments I've read, that I have read, you guys have pointed out, well, there are people who they say, no, I can't learn Linux, but they're holding on to an Android phone. They're using an Android phone. They're using some tool that Linux is involved in. How do you plan to learn Linux if you're brand new in this field? Or how do you plan to keep yourself abreast in Linux or make Linux more interesting? I just discovered, what is this? The Raspberry Pi? I'm like, what? This is fascinating. Like, you can get this little thing. It looks like a little tiny little motherboard, which is actually a computer, and you can connect it to a monitor. And I was like, this is interesting. I want to know more. All I want to say is just keep your curiosity alive. Keep that childlike wonder alive. I'll end with one more story. I was in the 7th grade, junior high school, and we were taking a computer class, and it was with the Radio Shack Tandy, TRS-80, TRS. If you guys remember that, comment below. And I wanted to understand what the teacher was teaching. Now I know that my mind was not ready for it. I was fascinated by that machine, this big TRS, I think it's TRS-80. I wanted to understand it. She was trying to teach us coding, and I couldn't get it at that point in time. In that point in my life, I just could not get it. And I remember many years later, when I was in college, I decided I wanted to take a course in C++. And still I could not digest what the professor was trying to teach. And no fault of the professor or my classmates, I just could not digest what was being thrown at me. And I feel that I was not ready for that then, until now. I had to do a lot of personal work to get to the point where my mind is like, oh, I want to learn this now. But that's all for now. That's not all for now. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you like the content I put out, give this video a like and subscribe so that I can reach more amazing, awesome sauce people like you. Thank you so much for stopping by. I will see you in the next upload. Cheers.